If you like hoops, then you like Slam. Today we're going to talk everything you need to know about Slam magazine. All right, guys, so I spend a lot of time on this channel talking about Sports Illustrated, probably the most common, most popular sports magazine that we deal with in the graded sports magazine hobby. But today we're going to talk about another publication that I think is very cool. Maybe doesn't get as much love as Sports Illustrated, but maybe it should, and that's Slam magazine. So after Sports Illustrated, which is kind of the gold standard, kind of the upper echelon of sports magazines, there are a few other publications that I think have some really collectible covers. Slam magazine is right up there for me, possibly number two, if not definitely in the top five. And so thought I'd put this little video together talking about some of the differences and some of the facts, some of the interesting facts. We're also going to look at some data about Slam magazine. So let's go ahead and jump right in here. We are going to start off talking about the origin of Slam. So Slam started off in 1994, which is actually 50 years, exactly 50 years after Sports Illustrated, because SI started in 1954. So 1994 for Slam magazine, and from the get-go, the founders and the creators of Slam, they knew that they didn't want to be like Sports Illustrated. Like they were intentionally going for something totally different. And Sports Illustrated was kind of seen as, more upper class, even at times, snobby or holier than thou. Slam magazine wanted to go for the total opposite. They wanted to be a magazine for the people. They wanted to infuse culture and hip hop. They wanted it to feel as if you were reading their magazine like straight from the playground. So it wasn't necessarily just a magazine to celebrate stars, which was a lot of what Sports Illustrated did, especially around this time that Slam came out. I mean, Sports Illustrated was like worshiping Michael Jordan. Slam wanted to just celebrate the game of basketball, the sport of basketball. So and also they wanted to be a lot more maybe not as clean cut, a little more in your face. And actually that's exactly what we'll see here in a minute that they put on the cover, the In Your Face magazine. So Slam really comes at you with some attitude, very culturally relevant. I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to start looking at some of these different images of Slam. This right here is the very first issue of Slam, the basketball magazine. This came out in May 1994. Larry Johnson on the cover, Grandmama. He's not a Hall of Famer, but he was very relevant back in the early to mid 90s, coming out of UNLV. He was the number one overall pick in the NBA. He was the rookie of the year in the NBA. And so, this was Larry Johnson on the very first cover. And you can see right there on the very top, it says the In Your Face Basketball Magazine. And this is very, I mean, really from issue number one, we've talked before about it took Sports Illustrated over a decade to find their niche and to really hit, get their groove. In fact, it was a non-profitable publication for over a decade. But Slam really from issue number one, from this premiere issue, they pretty much nailed what they were going for, and they've stuck with that throughout. And just the, even the font of the Slam and just the imagery and you can just really tell it really is a lot more in your face, a lot more attitude, a lot more culture and hip hop. And so that's what they did. That's what they were really successful with. Now, we're going to talk about some of the nuances here, especially when it comes to grading. So first off, here's a big distinction that I want everyone to understand when we're talking Slam versus Sports Illustrated. Slam was a newsstand-based publication. Okay. The majority of Slam's sales were directly bought at the newsstand. On the other hand, Sports Illustrated was primarily a subscription-based publication. They had at their peak, like in the 80s and 90s, they had upwards of like 3.5 million subscribers. All right. Slam was never anywhere close to that. Slam had, you could get a subscription to Slam. And if you were to search on eBay for some Slam magazines, you will see issues with stickers on there, with mailing labels on there that were subscription issues. But the majority of them were newsstands. So it's not quite as rare to find a newsstand of a Slam as maybe it would be a Sports Illustrated, because once again, the majority of the issues that Slam was selling were newsstands. But let's also put into consideration the readership. Okay, even though Slam was pretty cool and definitely gained popularity going through the 90s and into the 2000s, their readership was still a lot less than Sports Illustrated. So while the ratio of newsstands to subscriptions is not quite as low for Slam as it would be for Sports Illustrated, it is still really hard to find a lot of newsstand copies of Slam because there were a lot fewer printed and made than there were of Sports Illustrated, if that makes sense. So that's something that I want everyone to keep in mind. One of the biggest value drivers when it comes to graded Sports Illustrated is that rarity of the newsstand. And that is still applicable with Slam, but I just want everyone to understand that Slam was really a newsstand based publication. Okay, here's something else that is interesting. Sports Illustrated relied heavily on their award-winning photography, their amazing photography. Slam, once again, because it was a newsstand-based magazine, a lot of their covers look a lot more like some of those other magazines that you think of whenever you think of being at the grocery store and you're about to check out all your groceries and you see the newsstand rack there of some of those magazines that they're wanting you to pick up and buy at the last minute because you see something that's eye-catching and appealing on the cover. That was a lot of what Slam had to do. And so here's a perfect example. This cover right here, this cover almost, to me, like the layout of it almost looks exactly like a People magazine, or like, even like I know totally different genre, but like a Cosmopolitan magazine, or one of those magazines that you would have seen right there, that, people are going to pick up at the last minute. And so that's why Sports Illustrated could get away with putting nothing on the cover but a picture of Mickey Mantle. Slam couldn't get away with that. They're trying to draw in as many people as possible. So they've got the cover here of LeBron and Dwayne Wade, but then there's also a little subsection. Oh, maybe you want to read about Carmelo. Maybe you want to read about Kobe and Lamar Odom and how they're going for the three-peat. Maybe you want to read about Derrick Rose. So that's another thing to realize about Slam is their covers a lot of times were a little different because they were made to attract people to buy them off of the newsstand. Another difference between Slam and Sports Illustrated, or at least the majority of Sports Illustrated, is that Slam has glued spines. Okay, so let me bring my screen back bigger real quick. So here's a copy of Slam right here, and you can see this is the spine, and it's like a square spine. There are no staples, so that's what's called a glued spine. If I open this up, there are no staples in here, and that's how all of Slam's magazines are. Sports Illustrated, from its inception, 1954, all the way up until, I don't know, but just within the last few years, I mean, maybe 2016, 17, something like that, they had staples. Now, they did switch to glued spines just here in the past few years, but the majority are stapled spines, whereas Slam has the glued spine with no staples. Also, Slam was known to always put like a random little phrase on the spine. So this issue I have here of Allen Iverson, it's got a little saying here on the spine that says, I don't know if I'll be able to get that to focus. It doesn't look like I will, but it says the Funk Doctor. That's what it says right here. No, I cannot get that to focus. I apologize. But every issue you ever see of Slam, check out the spine, because there's always, and sometimes it was just like an inside joke with the writers and the publishers, or sometimes it was something just kind of play on words based on the cover shot. But that's kind of a unique thing about Slam. They always had that random phrase on the spine. Another thing about Slam, they are really easily damaged. So the covers are a little more glossy, and as opposed to Sports Illustrated, which is it feels a little bit more like paper. And so I don't really know the science behind it or why that is, but the Slam covers, they just get damaged a lot more easily. If you go search on eBay and start browsing a bunch of those slams that are available, you'll see, I mean, the majority of them will have bent corners or creasing, just folds. It's just the covers are a lot more prone to get that kind of damage than the Sports Illustrateds. So, for that reason, the grading on these is really tough, is really tough. All right, so I'm gonna jump back over here, and we're actually gonna look at some data to show you just how tough some of the grading is here. So let's look up here. So Slam, I looked at some numbers on all of the graded issues of Slam. And so, like I said, Slam began in '94. And I stopped at 2015 because, in my opinion, once you get past 2015, that's where people started picking up a little bit more on maybe the hobby of collecting or grading magazines. Because you got to remember, CGC's been doing this going back for over a decade. But after 2015, those are what I would almost consider like ultra modern. And also that's around the time that Slam started doing some other like variant type stuff, which we'll talk about in a minute. But anyway, I wanted to stop my data at 2015. So from '94 to 2015, a little over 20 years, um, Slam the Slam magazines from that era, there have only been 410 copies graded by CGC. And I shouldn't have put newsstands because actually I'm sure some of those are subscriptions. I think the majority are newsstands, but 410 copies of Slam magazine graded by CGC from the years '94 to 15. Okay, of those 410, only 12 are 9.8s. And I omitted the reprints. We're going to talk about the reprints here in a second. So only 12 of those legit 410 magazines from that era are 9.8. So that's 3% of the slams that have been sent in to be graded. Also, of all of those 410 slams from those first 21 years, the average CGC grade thus far has been an 8.1. That is really tough grading, and that goes to what I was talking about with how those covers can be damaged a little bit more easily. So compare that below to Sports Illustrated, and you will see just how real that is. So once again, I looked at the exact same era. I don't want to. It would have skewed the data if I looked at this SIs going all the way back to the '50s and '60s because those are so old. That would have a huge effect on the grade. I just looked at the exact same year, the exact same sample of time from '94 to 2015. 5,380 copies graded of Sports Illustrated. So that tells you how much more common and popular Sports Illustrated is compared to Slam. Of those 5,380, 622 have been 9.8s. That's 11.6%. So only 3% of the slams from that era are getting 9.8s, but 11.6 of the SIs are getting 9.8s. And you can see there the average grade of the SIs is an 8.9 compared to an 8.1 for slams. So once again, the slams are really tough to pop good grades in because they just get damaged a little bit more easily. So for that reason, I almost have I've decided to adjust my thinking a little bit when it comes to looking at graded slams. And this is totally my own personal kind of opinion and whatever way of looking at things. So adopt it if you want, or call me an idiot if you want. But I have decided that when I'm looking at a graded slam, I'm basically going to move it down. I'm gonna adjust it 2 grade levels. And what I mean by that is, to me, a slam 9.4 is pretty much just as good as a Sports Illustrated 9.8. Okay, now, of course, there are a few actual 9.8s of slams, so those whew, those would almost be like a 9.9. Okay, those are so hard to get. But a 9.4 of a slam to me, because of how hard it is to grade highly, that's just about as good as a 9 as if I had graded a 9.8. And so then, like a 9.2, I would almost consider a 9.6. An 8.5, I would almost consider a 9.2. That's just kind of my own little, like I said, way of looking at slams, just based on the data and just based on my personal experience of seeing how hard those are to grade really highly. Okay, next thing I want to talk about, I mentioned reprints, and I've also mentioned this in two of my other videos, but has to be talked about here since this video is all about Slam. You need to know that Slam magazine has been recreating some of their iconic and famous covers and selling them online. The entire magazine. The only difference is that they don't have a barcode. So this one that I've been showing you, this is a reprint. I actually ordered this off of the Slam website not too long ago, and you can see there's no barcode on the cover. And I've got the exact same cover here that's been graded, and you can see exact same cover, but the one here in my right hand, it's got the barcode on the bottom corner, and that is what indicates that this was an original magazine print back from 1999. This was a reprint. Okay, so you need to know that. You need to know the difference. Unfortunately, um, CGC has not recognized the difference. They have been taking some of these reprints that people have been sending in, and they've graded them and they've notated them on the slabs as if they are originals. And that's just, really, that's tough to fault CGC on that, because this is such a kind of a rare thing, and they focus more on comics. But unfortunately, there are a handful of graded slabs out there that are labeled as if they're originals when really they're reprints. But all you got to do is look to see if the barcode exists. Okay, and if you don't believe me that CGC is doing this, let me show you this. So let me slide this over here. So this is that exact Allen Iverson cover I was just showing you. March 1999. This is one of the most iconic Slam covers. And you can see that there are 4 9.8s and 6 9.6s. All right. And based on what I was just telling you and all the data that I just showed you, normally you'd think, wow, that's incredible. And that's really rare. Of those, I know for sure at least half of them are reprints because I've been able to find them online. Of course, not all of them have been put up for sale, but every single issue, every single copy of this issue that I've seen online that's a 9.0 or higher is one of the reprints that CGC graded. My 8.5 is the highest that I've seen that is an original. That doesn't mean that a couple, there very well could be a few originals that are higher than mine. I just haven't seen them. They haven't been posted online. But look at this. This is even more telling. Scroll down. Black Metal Edition. Okay, so if a copy or if an issue has like multiple variants, they're going to list the different variants here on this same census page. Black Metal Edition is one of the variants that Slam creates. Well, let me just tell you right now. And look, there's been 2 of these graded, and then you can even scroll down. Gold Medal Edition, and there was one of these, a 9.4, and then the 2 black medals were 9.4s. Slam magazine wasn't making black medal editions and gold editions in 1999. Baseball cards were barely even doing variants at that time. That was a brand new thing for baseball cards in 1999. Slam started doing that just in the past couple years, but CGC has graded them as if they're from 1999. Okay, so very disappointing. Hopefully at this time CGC is aware of it and they will stop doing it. Maybe they can even go back and fix it. The ones that they've, they can maybe fix it in the census. They can't fix the slabs that people already have, but everyone needs to be aware of that. Okay, so we've talked about reprints versus originals. Another thing to be aware of, let me see. Okay, good. I still got my screen shared. Similar to Sports Illustrated, Slam has they have some other kind of versions of their publication. So there, you got Sports Illustrated, you have SI Presents. Slam also has Slam Presents, and this is an example right here. You can see Slam Presents right there. So this is not like Slam put out monthly covers, and this is not one of the normal monthly covers that Slam put out. This was like a special collector's issue, exact same thing that Sports Illustrated does. So kind of cool. Just know that Slam does that, and then also they've got a pretty cool. And this technically is also Slam Presents because you can see here Slam Presents, but this is called Slam Presents Kicks. And this is kind of a unique one, what I would consider yet another version of their publication. And it focuses a lot more on sneakers, kind of, still has the basketball aspect, but also looks at sneakers, which, a lot of people are really into that. So that's kind of cool too. And there are some cool covers with the Slam Kicks. And then we've talked about these variant versions. So here's an example. This is Luka Doncic, and this is, I think, the gold edition right here. So how these work is only a limited number were printed. So just like I mentioned with sports cards, for those of you sports card collectors that are familiar with this, you'll have your base card, which thousands and thousands of were printed, and that would be your normal weekly issue that's going out to all the newsstands and the stores. Well, then with your sports card, you may have a variant of it that's serialed out of 99. Only 99 copies of that version were made, and it's like a slightly different color, or there's just something that's slightly a slight variation to it. And then maybe there's another version where only 25 of them were made. Okay, well, Slam Magazine does the same thing with their magazines. Sports Illustrated has never done that, to my knowledge. So this Luka on the left is a gold edition. This one is a black metal, and you can even see, actually the gold shows it too, but I can't read that. It says gold blank of blank, like this is number whatever, 1 of 100. On the black, you can see this is number 12 of 60. So there were only 60 copies made of this black metal edition. So kind of a unique thing that Slam does there. And I think those, they sell all those directly from their website. And so it's not like sports cards where you could like randomly get one, out of a pack and kind of get lucky. With the Slam ones. You have to buy them, and you got to pay more for them. So all right, Slam Magazine has some really cool covers. I think this one's really neat. Stevie Franchise, Steve Francis. And I think another cool thing about Slam is you can get some covers of some pretty relevant stars that never made an SI cover. And I listed a few there. Reggie Miller never had his own Sports Illustrated cover. He was on the background of like one with MJ, but was never featured on a Sports Illustrated. He's got his own Slam cover. Tracy McGrady. Can you believe that? T-Mac was never on a Sports Illustrated cover. He was the man. When he was with the Magic and then with the Rockets, never on an SI, but he's got some Slam covers. Damian Lillard, so some of these newer guys, Damian Lillard, Devin Booker, Ja Morant, major star power, never been on a Sports Illustrated cover, but they have their own Slam covers. So I think that's another cool thing about Slam is maybe you've got a favorite athlete who never got on the cover of SI, but he maybe was on the cover of Slam. And Slam has also had they've had some female basketball players on the cover as well. I mean, I know they've had like Sabrina Ionescu or Paige Buchers. They've got like Candace Parker. They've got some WNBA type people on there too. And then I think last thing that I am going to mention is these are the people on the most Slam covers. So with Sports Illustrated, we know that MJ's been on the most covers. He's on 50. And then after that, I think you're looking at guys, I think Muhammad Ali is second. And then you're looking at guys like LeBron and Tiger Woods and Brady. I think those are some of the next ones up. Here are the athletes with the most Slam covers. So with 8 covers, you had Kevin Durant and Kevin Garnett. 10 covers, Dwayne Wade and Steph Curry. Shaq had 11. Michael Jordan is actually only the fourth most with Slam. He had 13 covers. Allen Iverson, which makes sense, you know, when you think about what Slam was all about. Once again, not only basketball but culture, hip hop, also attitude. Allen Iverson checks every one of those boxes just about more than anyone else that's ever played the game. So he's on 14 covers. Kobe was on 22. LeBron's been on 28. So kind of cool there. All right, that is everything that I wanted to talk about today with Slam. Hope you learned something. Hope you found this interesting. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Please like, please subscribe, and until the next video.